4 queens on move 11. I am not joking. And this was played between two eminent personalities of the chess world, Boris Gelfand and Sergei Movsesian, two very strong GMs. Let's delve right into the game. The game started off with d4, d5, c4, c6, known as the Slav defense. Knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, d takes c4, e4, b5, bishop e2, e6, a4. This has not been played quite often. A super exciting game in this line went castle, where bb7, rook b1, and bd7, b3, bishop b4, queen c2, bishop takes e3, and knight takes c4. It seems as if black just won a pawn. But queen e3 now. c5, b takes e4. Now, of course, you can't really take this because of the bishop on b7, which would be hanging. So b4, d5. Again, now, we are blocking this bishop from defending this e4 knight. So, he has to take. After cd5, bishop takes d5. Again, black is 2 pawns up. What does white have in return? Well, rook d1. Attacking this bishop. Now, where does this bishop go? If something like bishop to b7, that doesn't work because of knight e5. Attacking this knight and taking control of this pin. And now what does white do? If black takes on e5 while rook takes d8, just wins the queen. So in the end, black had to sacrifice this bishop. Knight c3, however, another fork. Bishop c4, knight takes b1, queen to d3. And with more tactical strikes to follow by both sides, it eventually ended in a draw. This game was between Li versus Ma in Liaocheng 2021. a4, however, was played, not played quite often, like I said, and now b4. One very fresh game, just in this tournament itself, was played bishop b7. After ab5, cb5, e5. Knight to e4, knight takes b5, bishop b4 check. King f1 has to be played. He loses his castling rights because if something like bd2, that's never a good idea because after knight d2, and you can first even take this pawn on g2 or first just play castle followed by taking this pawn on g2. And white really feels a bit weird because after castle, again, queen d5. Checkmate on g2 and the knight, and black wins a piece. So king f1 is forced, bishop d5, knight a3, bishop a3, rook a3, castle, h4. This game was between Joe versus Corey, FIDE-Chess.com Grand Swiss 2021. However, Movsesian decided to play b4. e5, b takes e3, e takes f6, c takes b2, f takes g7, b takes a1, queen, the first promoted queen. Here, there was another game in Riga. After bishop takes g7, bishop takes b2, queen a5, knight d2. This time this is of course possible because this pin cannot be used. Bishop a6, rook c1. Of course, please don't play castle because there's simply going to be c3. And some tactics like bishop takes c3 don't work out because, of course, this bishop is always going to be guarded by the knight on b8. So instead, knight d2, bishop a6, white simply played rook c1, castle, castle, knight d7, bishop takes c4, knight takes c4, queen d5, knight e3, queen e4, a5, and this got a slight edge for white in Zoe versus Bartel, again in the FIDE-Chess.com Grand Swiss 2021. But in this game, b takes a1 queen happened, and we saw 4 queens on the board. A picture skew position indeed, and this is just on move 11. Queen a5 check, and knight d2. This Gelfand had prepared this piece sacrifice in his repertoire, which by the way is also a novelty. This game had also been played once before. After king f1, queen f5 takes a4, queen takes a4, g3, king g2, bishop f4, queen h7, queen a2, knight d2, c5 check, queen a6, and queen c6, and black managed to draw this game in Halkayas versus Heinemann. Weirdly enough, this was also played in Riga, the birthplace of the magician Mikhail Tal. However, knight d2 prepares an interesting piece sacrifice. After c3, and now castle. This was already forced because if knight b3, hey, that's a queen, 2 queen fork. However, sadly this loses due to c2 check. After knight a5, c takes d1 queen, another promoted queen, beware. Bishop takes d1, and now simply queen takes c1. And if you try king takes d1, well, queen takes a4 check, winning the knight on a5. So castle, this was, well, the actual sacrifice, which was already forced, however. So c takes d2, bishop takes d2, queen takes d1, rook takes d1. And finally, the extra pair of queens are off. But black is a whole piece up. And now black decides to play queen takes a4, which is quite risky because none of the black pieces are able to move. And the king side will be bulldozed by all of these pawns just running down the board. And as well as an attack coming with bishop h6, bishop h5, attacking these weak squares of the black king. Here, a better move might have been queen to f5 to keep the queen close to the king side, which may even be the only defense. Black, however, might have been afraid of this spectacular move d5. The pawn is, of course, immune. If c takes d5, well, now there's simply bb4. Knight d7, bishop b5, and these pins are just too deadly. Queen takes f8, checkmate is threatened. If e takes d5, well, now again bishop b4, taking use of this pin. And this time, however, knight d7 is possible, but now simply bishop d3. And the check along the c file might as well be decisive. But the main defense was actually a very interesting one. Pause the video if you need to. Black to play and try to get the slight edge. Well, here, queen g6. Black is threatening to swap the queens. Black, of course, wants to play queen g7, and this very active queen on h8 would be forced to take. So I would never want that. Queen e5, knight d7, queen c7, rerouting the queen from h8 to c7, where now again it controls some key squares. E takes d5, bishop h5, sacrificing the bishop. If you take, well, now rook e1 check, and bishop b4, queen h4, the only move. If queen g5, well, this is also possible, but queen h4 is just a bit more safer. Bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, king takes e7, queen takes e6, and most likely after rook b8, h4. And okay, this is possible, of course, but here it's quite interesting how to evaluate this position, because black has a rook, a bishop, and a knight for a queen. But on the other hand, the black king on e7 is quite weak. But black is also threatening rook b1 check. So here, h4 has to be played. And of course, Tal would love to have the queen in this position because the queen can always create those mating attacks and win the game on the spot. But this is roughly equal, but still unclear. So queen f5, like I said, would have been the only defense. However, black decided to play queen takes a4. And now queen takes h7. Instead of going in for the kill, Gelfand opts for something else. Here, interestingly enough, bishop h5 could have been played. White, of course, goes straight for the attack. Knight d7, and now some hard moves to spot. Computer help needed. Bishop to g5, h6, bishop h4, queen b5, d5, cd5, queen g8, knight e5, bishop f6. This leads to a huge attack for white. Of course, next threatened is bishop to g7. If knight d7 again, haha, queen takes f7 mate. So black has almost nothing except for playing knight g6, but now simply take, and now queen takes g6. And this, of course, wins on the spot because the king is just too weak. After this, queen e8 check, King b6, bishop d8 check. If rook king a6, rook a1 check. And queen takes b5 mate. So that's why knight g6 is not possible, and black would have to give up this knight with something like maybe bishop d7, and after bishop takes e5, long castle, just trying to maintain equilibrium with this king safety. However, again, this is quite hard to spot with d5 coming in the game, bishop g5, and this bishop h4 maneuver. And you may be thinking, well, instead of knight d7, what happens if queen to b5? Well, d5. Again, we're wanting to win some time. After c takes d5, queen to g8, queen b7, and rook c1. Of course, some ideas with bishop f4 and rook c7 may be coming. Knight a6. And now, a very quiet move, just controlling the key squares. And literally, black has nothing to do. h3. If something like e5, well now, simply bishop to h6. If queen e7, well, rook c6. All of these pieces are coming in the game. And black might as well just resign here. So bishop h5 would have most likely won, but queen takes h7 might as well be the most practical. a5, h4. This is what the Israeli GM had in mind. This pawn is going to be extremely powerful. Rook a7, waiting for the pawn to make another step. This time e5 is too late, because after h5, bishop e6, h6, knight d7, bishop g7, black will not get a time to castle. So instead of a5, the stronger move would have been to play e5, bringing the caged bishop on c8 out. And after bishop h6, queen b4, d takes e5, bishop e6. The position is extremely complex, and white apparently has plenty for the piece. But if h4, this is an important line. How should we continue? Bishop to e6, h5, knight to d7, h6, and long castle. And this time the king is of course much safer on c8, and the rook will be able to handle this passer on h6, while moves like bishop to b4 and rook h8. So stronger of course would have been e5, sacrificing the pawn in return. But after a5, it's a good plan because we are trying to get the rook out of the defense. But h4, rook a7, h5. And now black plays bishop to a6. This time around, there's no, of course, bishop e2, bishop to e2 to h5, where it would attack the f7 pawn. But bishop f7, bishop f3 is equally good. Again, we're just pressurizing this c6 pawn, and there are some ideas with d5. Rook d7 was played. Here, the other try was knight d7 with the idea to play something like knight f6. But after h6, rook b7, queen g8, bishop b3, h7, bishop h7, knight f6. The position seems quite unclear. But here, the important move, instead of queen g8, would have been bishop to g5, just stopping knight f6. Slowly, and next moves, of course, queen g8, h7, and h8 queen. If something like rook b3, then simply queen g8. Why doesn't this work though? Pause the video if you need to. Here, a spectacular move for black. Rook takes f3. Well, what does this do? After g takes f3, now, of course, queen takes d1 check. And black wins the bishop. So he will be 2 bishops up. And next move after h7, okay, something like king h2. Now even queen takes f3 is possible, because after h7, queen takes f2 will be mate. King h3, bishop f1, king g4, queen g2 check, king f4. The king is already in a mating net and soon will be checkmated. So knight d7 might as well be the better try. But rook d7 is also possible. h6. Gelfand, of course, wants to force matters quickly. Rook takes d4 was played, and here the other capture, queen takes d4, doesn't save black either, because after queen g8, bishop b3, and bishop g5, the same idea. The black bishop is pinned right now, and in order to stop the h passer, black has to play queen to e5, bishop h5, bishop g6, and now rook d7 wins in all lines. Queen g5, rook takes f7 is just a nice maneuver. Queen c1 check, queen h6, and simply queen takes g6. White will of course win the game. Though yes, some technique will be required because he's just an exchange up, but these pawns are too far away and they're isolated as well. So white will win the pawn and the game, most likely. So rook takes g4 seems the most logical. Bishop h5. And now here, black has only one chance to imbalance the position and try to get something out of this. Pause the video. How should black continue? Here, black had to play queen takes d1, the last chance. And after bishop takes d1, rook takes d2, imbalancing the position. And now white has to be very careful in order to get the advantage. Bishop h5, rook d7. And here white does actually prevail because of simply queen e4. The queen is very centralized and this e6 pawn is threatened. If bishop takes h6, now of course this loses to queen takes e6. And if black tries to play bishop to d3, well, again, queen e6, queen e5, queen a5, queen g5, or even queen e5, followed by some ideas with h7, h8, and of course again you can't take because of queen h8 winning the bishop. So yeah, queen takes d1 check was the last chance for them. But here black decided to play rook d7, just defending this f7 pawn. Queen g8, bishop d3, bishop g5. One threat is of course to sacrifice the exchange for the bishop. Rook takes d3, rook takes d3, and h7, h8 queen. There is no way to stop that. So black decides to play bishop g6. In case of any other retreat, well, guess what? We have retreats. Queen takes f7 check. Rook takes f7, rook d8, checkmate, game over. So bishop g6 had to be played. And now, simply rook to e1. Suddenly, Gelfand just changes directions and goes straight for the attack. And that is decisive. Bishop takes h5, h7, and the passer will be crowned. If here, of course, bishop g6 again, a sweet mate, queen takes f8, and h8 queen. So black had to play queen to b4, defending the bishop on f8. But rook takes e6 check. Again, here, if you try h8 queen, that doesn't work. Queen takes e1 check, queen b4. And yes, white does have two queens on the board, but black has a rook, a knight, and a bishop for the queen. And of course, black does have his queen as well to create some havoc on the board. So this is very unclear. So not yet h8 queen. First, rook takes e6 check. After f takes e6, queen takes e6. Queen c8, king f7. And again, why not h8 queen? Rook e1 check. Queen d6 check. And now simply bishop g6. There are no good checks right now. And again, like I said, it's rook, bishop and knight against the queen. And black again has his queen to create the havocs and the check coming. So we can't queen yet. Queen f5, queen c8, just repeating the moves quite 2 times before playing h8 queen. This time it is possible. Rook e1, bishop g4, queen g6 check. The 2 queens quickly finish black. And here Movsesian resigned and Gelfand won his first game in the FIDE Grand Swiss 2021 round 9. So now let's see the standings. Right now, Firouzja is at the top with Fabi and David Howell, a surprise contender, but he has been playing quite a lot of good chess. And closely followed by are a group of many people: Sasikaran, Yugang Yi, MVL, Predke, Shirov, Oparin Grigory, Anton Gojare, Sergei Sian, and Sevian Sam, and Nikita Vitigov. And behind them are Petrosian, Kamer Vincent, Nihal Serene, Shevchenko Kirill, Korobov Anton, Esipenko Andrei, and Dubov Daniel. That's it from me. Thank you for watching. Bye.